So definitely we want to make sure that the citizens are getting the most up-to-date information and the latest guidelines put forth by the CDC from reliable sources. So mymanatee.org, we've set up a COVID-19 page. The Florida Department of Health has up-to-date information as well, and definitely the Centers for Disease Control as well.
So, what are the major concerns that you would say that citizens should look for? You know, families with children, seniors. What are those major concerns or issues that you want people to be aware of?
Right now we're focusing on the elderly, those over 65, and then the risks increase as the age goes up. Those are our at most risk important people that we're taking a look at. Nursing homes, hospitals, healthcare workers, and then the general workforce. We need them to be healthy to be able to help the elderly population that is most affected by this. So some of the things we're looking at is spread within the elderly community, assisted living facilities, skilled nursing facilities, and making sure that they're adhering to the guidelines.
Now, one of the issues that you talked about today in your briefing was the fact that, you know, there's plenty of supply and the supply chain is working fine. But people are finding shelves empty, you know, things missing. What would you like the community to know about, you know, those supply chains?
There's no need for hoarding. The supply chain and the supply is both readily available, and they're trying to fill that as quick as they can. But as the community goes out and panic buys or hoards a lot of stuff, then it leaves an open for those healthcare workers that are working all day. It leaves an open for families that are providing for sick family members and then try to get to a store to get things. So, you know, take what you need. You definitely don't need to hoard. There's definitely not a supply problem.
And one of the things you mentioned in your briefing, which I found very interesting, is the fact that the special emphasis and focus is being put on EMS, first responders, in order for them to be safe and secure as they go about their duties. How important is that, sir?
So that's our front line defense in this, is not only EMS and first responders, but also the healthcare community itself. So we've called upon them to manage this crisis, whether it be through transport, care. So our utmost concern in terms of that is keeping those guys healthy, making sure they have the PPE that they need to wear, making sure they know how to do it, and then setting up a proper procedure to get that patient the care they need, whether it be transport, whether it be isolation or quarantine.
Final question for you, sir. You know, given the opportunity to address Manatee County with citizens, what are those critical things that you want this community to know about the efforts being made by county staff and county services?
So we're in constant contact with the state of Florida, with the governor's office, and the federal emergency management as well. We are constantly bringing in information for us to gather, sift through, and then make our best decisions on what next to do. So we don't make these lightly. We know that especially in our area, tourists and businesses rely on people being able to go out and make their daily purchases, eat at restaurants and such. So when we set out guidelines for the public, we're really doing that with the CDC and all of the appropriate decision makers in concurrence.
Well, thanks to your leadership and your emphasis on this, you know, Manatee County is making some great inroads and will continue to do so, correct?
Yeah, that definitely will. This is not something we've been through before, but we're picking up and running with it, and you know, very confident in our government as well as the states to manage this.
Ms. Corrier, first of all, this is a briefing, an emergency briefing on COVID-19. Tell us a little bit why it's important for Manatee County, as the county administrator, to stay in front of this and to be proactive as you move forward.
Yeah, well, thank you. We have a lot of instances where we plan for things like this. We're very experienced due to our situation here with the weather, but this is a little different. So being proactive and working collaboratively with the Department of Health, the CDC, all of our federal partners and our state partners allows us to get out in front of these types of things and give good messaging to the community.
Well, clearly Manatee County is doing that by providing through mymanatee.gov a lot of information, updated information, and working with the health department is kind of a a benefit as well.
Yeah.
Why is it important to continuously give the information out to the public? School's out now. School might be extended. The deadline might be extended through the end of March. Why is it important for Manatee County to be on the cutting edge of providing this information?
Right. Well, currently we only have 5 cases as of today. That's been a very good situation, although unfortunate for any sufferers or family members or friends of persons. But in order for us to try to maintain the least amount of community access to something like this, getting out in front of it, getting good messaging, consistent messaging, working collaboratively, making sure people know what all the steps they need to do to stay healthy. We just heard from Dr. Hernandez with the Department of Health that flu-like illnesses are down, and we think that has definitely a correlation with how well everybody's been doing with keeping their hands cleaned, watching out from little distancing from each other.
Well, one of the other things, too, is that Manatee County is kind of really, residents and business organizations have kind of really responded to this major concern by canceling events. Events large and small are being canceled. Limiting, the state is limiting or asking limit to 50 people or more. How important is that, and what's the message that Manatee County wants to put forward?
Yeah, we have been really dealing with some ever-changing statistics in the last 5 or 6 days. And just to keep in mind, when we're talking today, things are going to continually change. But for right now, we follow the CDC standards. A new directive came out today, and they're just suggesting, as a good measure, for large gatherings to be limited to 50 persons or less. So some of the things that we're asking communities and businesses to do is do more WebEx type meetings, do traditional old telephone calls instead of, making sure that you have to do in person, FaceTime, Zoom, all of those different methods to keep things moving, because it really is important that we keep as much activity in the business community moving, stay on target, keep our deadlines where we can, but also to help protect those folks from becoming infected with any kind of illnesses, but so that they can serve the public.
And Ms. Corey, a final question for you. As the county administrator is responsible for a workforce here, Manatee County employees, and ultimately responsible for the health and welfare of the citizens, what is that message that you want to say to those employees and community members about the efforts being made by Manatee County and moving forward?
Well, Manatee County is being very proactive, both for our employees and for the citizens. Each day at 11:15, we're on a call with the state, which it could be the governor or the emergency management state office, and we're bringing forward the next information. All 67 counties are on that call. Wow. Yes, so we're hearing problems that other counties might have, because as you can imagine, when one county does one thing, all the citizens wonder why we're not doing it as well. So we keep up to date on that. We have access to the governor's office, and then also we are making sure that all of the citizens are aware of their options. You brought up a couple things. You mentioned it's spring break. The schools are extending the time off for an additional week. Well, with that brings students that are home. So as a government, we are looking at flexible work schedules for our employees. We're doing some more telecommuting for our employees, and we're trying to maintain continuity but not lose the serviceability of this so that we can bring it to the citizens.
So Manatee County residents and employees alike will know that Manatee County government is a little bit ahead of the curve, and they're going to be responsive to the needs of this community.
We are. We're keeping all of our buildings as safe and sanitary as possible. We're doing frequent cleaning. We're closing temporarily for buildings to clean them fully, and or services to reopen them. And what is really important is that this is a 7-day declaration of emergency. We'll be back in 7 days, hopefully with some more positive steps and maybe starting to see the decline.
So, Mr. Zera, here we are. We just finished an emergency meeting of the County Commission moving forward on COVID-19. What was the purpose of having the emergency meeting today?
Right. So commissioners met today, an unscheduled public meeting to consider and ultimately approve a local state of emergency. And what that allows the government then to do is to respond more quickly and efficiently in an urgent public situation like the COVID-19. So it allows us, the staff, to be able to spend a little bit more freely in response to the COVID-19, but also it allows, when we're under the local state of emergency, we'll then have the ability to go back to our state and federal partners when all of this is over to request reimbursement.
Well, one of the things that Manatee County has been doing, and is kind of progressive in its, is providing information and information outreach under your leadership. Why is it important to get that information out throughout the county on the wide variety of resources and services that Manatee County government is providing?
Well, this is a lot like a hurricane, and when a hurricane is approaching, we tell people to turn to the county and the trusted news sources like METV and other of our local media partners to get the most accurate, up-to-date information from the officials who are in charge in the community. So when we hear updates from our Public Safety Director, Jacob Sauer, and today we heard from Dr. Bency, our Health Department Director, you're hearing it straight from the officials who are in charge of the local situation, and it's not a rumor or a tweet that is coming from an unsubstantiated source. So it really underscores the importance of getting your news from trusted sources and ensuring that you're hearing from the community officials who are in charge of that situation, because they have the most accurate information that's available.
And it was mentioned today, this is a unique situation that's never really been experienced, even though people have a lot of background in emergency management and emergency planning. You have spring break now, where students are out of school. You have a wide variety of assisted living facilities within Manatee County. And it's all important to reach all of those diverse members of the population to provide that information. What do you see moving forward, sir?
Well, so we know in another 7 days, in 7 days, this emergency declaration will expire. So this event, as we all know, is changing day to day, hour to hour. And we, with the county, are now meeting at the Emergency Operations Center with the Health Department, so that we're all in the same room every morning discussing the latest with each other. And in 7 days' time, we'll have a better understanding of the current situation. May have to ask commissioners to extend that emergency declaration another 7 days. But the importance of activating the partial activation of our Emergency Operations Center is just that more collaborative, free flow of information, and it's giving those first responders and us in the communications industry a more regular cadence. So we know when information is coming out, we can give the public the expectation of when to look for updates from the county or local news outlets. Again, it's just about sharing that information instead of trading a bunch of email and conference calls. So the more closely we can work with the health department, the better.
And final question for you, sir. As I mentioned before, you've been very proactive in trying to get information out. But what is that message that you would like the residents of Manatee County to know about the efforts being made by Manatee County government and all of the resources that it's at as you move forward? Because there's still a lot more to come on this pandemic.
Well, we heard several important things today from Dr. Bency, the Health Department Director, and Jacob Sauer. He's our Public Safety Director. And they both told our county commissioners that they fully expect the coronavirus cases to grow in number as testing becomes more prevalent in our community. And so another thing we heard was that healthy people can be carriers for the disease. And so for those reasons and the unknown, they stressed the importance, and what we're trying to do in our public messaging is, again, reinforce those messages of personal cleanliness and hygiene. We heard our Public Safety Director today to consider yourself someone that has the coronavirus, so that you're always thinking about that and taking proper precautions of hand washing, sanitizing, coughing into your elbow, social distancing, not shaking hands, and that sort of thing. So the message today was it's not a time to panic. It's a time to take the coronavirus very seriously, to practice social distancing and try to avoid large gatherings of people, and to do what you can to avoid the spread of the disease.